sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Steve Jones Show on a Friday afternoon. The Steve Jones Show brought to you today by those great folks over at Brewers Outlet, home to the pickle bar. Garlic, my favorite. Steve has his own favorites over there. And if they brew it anywhere near Sunbury, Pennsylvania, Brewers Outlet has it for you to consume. Friday afternoon means that Thursday night, NFL football pregame. Big questions in Philadelphia and Baltimore. Not really answered in full or even in part. Miles Sanders carried the ball 3 times last night for the Eagles, and that was it. Steve predicted if he was on the first team, he wouldn't see a lot of carries, and Steve was, as always, right. And then down in Baltimore, the Ravens were playing, and Trace McSorley, great Penn State quarterback in his rookie season, 9 of 22 with 1 interception for 80 yards, ran the ball several times for about 16 yards. So he got his baptism under fire in the NFL last night. The Philadelphia Phillies ran into a buzzsaw out in the Bay Area of California. Mr. Baumgartner, the pitcher for the Giants, he threw a one-hitter through 7 innings, and the Phillies got beat 5-0. A one-hitter combined by 2 pitchers. So, Phillies are going to be out there again tonight. I'll have to ask Kyle what game time is in the pregame. Kyle Alexander joining us here in the Sunbury Motors studio.
One quick comment about the Eagles game last night.
Okay.
Because I am an Eagles fan, and I'm not a diehard. I don't sit there and watch preseason games like Matt Catrillo.
Right.
But I would have expected a little bit of a better showing. I mean, that was pretty rough. You know what I mean? Did you watch it?
I did not watch it. I was busy doing something else last night, fortunately, that I didn't have to suffer through that. And and the other thing that made my night even better last night, the Pirates were not on, so I didn't have to suffer through another loss. They're 4-19 since the All-Star break, and if it would have been a game last night, they'd be 4-20 by now. So, no, I did not. Did you see Miles Sanders run the ball at all?
I don't really remember because once the score started getting out of hand, it was just kind of on in the background. You know what I mean?
I understand.
So,
been known to do that myself.
Yeah, and everybody kind of says, don't panic. It's only week 1 of preseason, and I'm going to take that advice. No need to panic.
No, it's a glorified scrimmage, I think. And they've got a lot of players to look at and, do it in a game-like situation. See who you can sort out that's from I don't know how many the roster has now, 80 or 90 players. So you got to figure out who's going to stay, who's getting cut, and this is how you do it in the preseason.
Yeah, well, I hope they found some that need cut last night. You know what I mean?
I do. And tonight, the best team in NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they play at home in Heinz Field. And speaking of Heinz Field, in the future, it may not be Heinz Field.
Is that right?
And Heinz and Pittsburgh just go together like ketchup and a Hamburg, to use a comparison.
Right, yeah, it's perfect.
But I think that the licensing agreement that the Steelers have, or the city authority that runs the stadium has with Heinz, expires in a year. And so not sure what's going to happen with that. Heinz is really no longer a Pittsburgh company like they were since Mr. Heinz founded it 100-plus years ago. They're now part of Kraft.
Oh, okay.
And so, speaking of mayonnaise and things like that, that's who actually owns Heinz. So,
and that doesn't have the same ring to it, Kraft Field.
No, Mayonnaise Field or something like that. No, I don't think so either. So, may not be Heinz Field much longer, but the Steelers will be in action They have a number of questions to answer this year. Le'Veon Bell, gone. Antonio Brown, gone. James Conner, here and hopefully not hurt as a running back. And, of course, the steady Eddie of the whole Pittsburgh Steelers team, Big Ben Roethlisberger out of Miami of Ohio a decade or two ago. He will be at the helm in the regular season. And the other issue is their kicker. You know, he's had a lackluster year, I believe, last year. And he needs to really crank it up a notch.
Yeah, and kicking is one of those things. It's black and white as far as how well you're doing, and it's kind of unfortunate for those kickers, but there's no marginal day as a kicker. I mean, you either make them or you miss them.
And you're only as good in many instances as your last couple kicks.
Right.
And one of the things that I happen to know a kicker in the NFL, and he says he has no memory. He just doesn't ever look backwards in terms of what's going on. He always looks forward. And, of course, he just signed a 2-year, $10.5 million deal with the San Francisco 49ers. We're talking about Penn State's own Robbie Gould out of Lock Haven and Central Mountain High School. He's one of the longest-serving players in the NFL. He's going to be 37 years old this year.
Wow.
And it only seems like a couple of years ago that he was just this rookie with the Chicago Bears. Started, I think, the 2006 season after the fourth game when their then kicker got hurt. They sent out the word, we need a kicker. Robbie and about 7 other guys answered the call. And this untested rookie from Penn State, he won the kicking battle. And he is now ranked, Kyle, 23rd on the all-time NFL scoring list. And at this age of 30,
we go.
Hey, there's Steve Jones.
There he is.
We had to be clever in, quote, reconnecting. In other words, I couldn't hear you guys at all until just now.
Oh my.
So
we were talking.
So that's we had to be clever in reconnecting.
Well, Steve, just to bring you up to date, Kyle and I were talking about last night's preseason game in Philadelphia, the Eagles and Miles Sanders, and down in Baltimore with the Ravens and Trace McSorley, 9 of 22, about 80 yards, 3 or 4 runs for about 16, 18 yards. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there was
I didn't see anything last night. I was actually doing a game. My interest in the preseason is so limited, unfortunately. I mean, it's not. I just feel like the NFL has like sapped all the interest out of it. Now, obviously, I know Trace threw a touchdown pass, and then it was called back, I believe, on a penalty.
Right, and he also had an interception as well in the mixed bag. Hey, the biggest Penn State rookie, or the biggest game by a Penn State rookie was out in Detroit. The guy whose name I can't pronounce, and you do it perfectly every time on defense, a defensive back.
Amani Oruwariye.
You got it.
And when I introduced Amani Oruwariye and his mom at the senior football banquet. So obviously I have to say the name back-to-back twice, okay?
Yes.
All right. So, James Franklin, when we were done, because James and I were sitting next to each other in the dais, leaned over to me and he said, I promise never to do that to you again.
Well, if you remember at our Penn State kickoff evening that we had last year down at Front Street Station, I asked you what was the most difficult name on the team as you in your capacity as announcer for you to pronounce, and of course you came up with him, the name I cannot say, and he really had a great game last night. They raved about him in the post game, and he's a good kid.
Well, you know what about Amani? Well, he is a good kid. I like Amani a lot personally. But what Amani's game translates to the next level. See, that's all part of what is so important about going college to pro. You have to have a game that translates to the next level. because sometimes what works for you on the college level does not work for you on the pro level. It's just the way it is. I think it's more often talked about with quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. Oh, his game on the college level really worked. It doesn't work that well when it comes to the pro level. So quarterbacks are usually the primary discussion points on translating from one level to the next, but it's at every single position on the field. You may be an outstanding college level tight end, and it doesn't go to the next level. The Andrews kid at Oklahoma, a lot of people very high on him. I wasn't. I didn't think his game would translate to the next level, and so far it hasn't. It just depends on who you are and whether you can, and whether when you get to that level, do you have the kind of game, the kind of size, the kind of athleticism that can go against comparable talent and make it work? And every position's like that. And going college to pro, Amani I always felt had that kind of game because, number one, he has good speed. So let's start. So beating him deep is not going to be an issue. He also has excellent length. And I also feel that he anticipates that. I think Amani can break on the ball a little bit better, but let's take, for example, the Appalachian State game last year. He did not play well in the Appalachian State game last year until that last play in the end zone where he baited the quarterback experience and broke on the ball and picked it off and ended the game in overtime.
As everyone was holding their breath, when that ball was thrown up in the air, there was about 100,000 people in Beaver Stadium just holding their breath until he did break for the ball and ended the game.
And he baited him. He baited him into making that throw. After, to be honest with you, after that quarterback had his way going at him most of the day, and to his credit, you have to have the ability, if you're playing that spot especially, and quarterbacks the same way too, but you have to have the ability to sit back and go, forget it, go to the next play. Mm-hmm. And to me, corner is absolutely one of those positions where you need to have one of those forget it, go to the next play deal, where you can then turn the game around on the next play after being beaten on previous plays.
By the way, Steve, we did mention that today is Brewers Outlet Day here on the Steve Jones Show, and I did mention garlic pickles at the pickle bar are the best. I know you differ. I know that you have a preference, but those garlic pickles, to die for.
Well, that's why they have a variety there.
Exactly.
And not only that, Corey always makes sure that when he comes over to see me at any point, he'll bring the variety.
That is all true. I can swear to that.
Yes, and I usually give you the garlic ones.
Yes, you do. as you hold your nose and say, "Get these out of here, Buhner."
No, I don't do that.
No, I know
just,
you
I
don't.
know you prefer that.
Yes,
but
that's all true.
At
But
the same time,
yeah, and by the way, briefly, Steve, tomorrow on another broadcast arena, namely the Big Ten Network, it's Penn State Day.
Yes, it is.
And there's two games they're going to broadcast tomorrow. I'm not sure if you can recall them. They're both overtime games. Mm-hmm. One against Minnesota that may have turned around a season.
Yeah, that's the one where the Trace McSorley drove them downfield, got the field goal late. And Tyler Davis kicked the field, and then Saquon scored the touchdown in overtime from 25 yards out.
It was like the first play of overtime or something, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Then
Penn State's first play, because they had stopped Minnesota before that.
And then the other game, of course, in overtime that's just etched in my memory forever is from the team that plays in the Big House. When they venture out, 4 overtimes later, they got beat.
I never forgot what I said when Penn State had the ball with 50-something seconds left. Mm-hmm. They were at the 20-yard line.
I'm going to say only 80 yards away.
And I said, here's Penn State, 52 seconds left. I can't remember how many timeouts. And I said, with their 18-year-old quarterback at the helm trying to tie the game.
Yeah, it's all true.
Allen Robinson made an absolutely phenomenal catch. It's not the one you're thinking of.
I'm going to say not that one right out at the goal line.
We'll get to that one in a second.
That was the other fantastic catch.
Right. In the opening of that drive, he made an incredible catch on the sideline. Mm-hmm. Then Christian was able to hit Brandon Mosby Felder in between two defenders. Now, there was separation between the two defenders, but he got the ball into the exact spot they needed, down to what I say, the 37-yard line or something like that. And then he made the throw to Allen Robinson, which was as great a catch as I've ever seen or called in my lifetime.
No question. Fabulous catch by Allen in the left corner right in front of the students and on the Penn State bench side of the field.
And then Christian Hackenberg snuck it in to tie the game.
Yeah, and then,
they need the extra point. They tied the game.
But I remember the kicking troubles that this brilliant kicker from Michigan, who was the greatest thing since George Blanda in kicking, and he doinked a couple that game.
The game reminded me so much of the Orange Bowl.
Yes.
That Jack and I did in 2006, where the Florida State kicker and Kevin Kelly.
Yes.
Somebody end this.
Yeah, please, one of you.
The Florida State kid hit it up off the upright. Now I'm trying to think I don't think the Michigan kicker hit the upright, but he missed.
He missed. Yeah, he didn't doink it. That's for sure. No, he did not. I don't believe. But he missed it. By a foot or two off to one side. And then there was a blocked field goal as well, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was a blocked field goal. And then in the fourth overtime, Bill O'Brien went for it on fourth down instead of kicking to tie it. And I remember Jack and I had him in the postgame, and I'm sure he said the same thing in the postgame press conference about going for it on fourth down. And they ran the ball with Bill Belton to get the first down. And he said, look, I looked around at everybody and said, look, we got to end this thing. So one way or the other, we're going to end it.
Right.
And then Belton took it home from there. And I believe it's the longest game to this point in the history of the Big Ten, 4 overtimes.
And it could be also the longest game time-wise, because that thing, it started on one day and ended in another.
Well, you know what? I remember watching the LSU Texas A&M game last year. They were playing at College Station. I want to say it went 7 overtimes.
It did go 7 overtimes, yes.
And I did not see the end of it because it was so late. And Penn State had played that day, and I'm hanging on, I'm hanging on. I couldn't hang on any longer.
Yeah,
all right? That sounds like an age thing.
No,
but I couldn't hang on any longer. And finally, to find out the next day, I think I made it through 5 overtimes. Now they've changed the rule on going that long into overtime.
And the new rule is. I can't remember.
I want to say when you get to the fifth overtime, they put the ball at the 1 yard line.
Yeah, you've got to exactly.
You got to play.
And you can't kick it, and it's not like out at the 25 and 4 downs.
You've got to play.
Yep.
Yeah, you've got to play.
Excellent.
Score. Now, Penn State's never been to that point, but now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, I've done the longest major bowl game ever.
Yeah.
Jack and I did that.
The Florida State game.
All right, and the longest Big Ten game ever. All right, okay.
You've been around.
Oh, I've been around, all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think everybody knows that. I've been around. For better or worse.
But anyway, that's tomorrow.
For the fan base, better or worse.
On ESPN, and what they in the promo for, or not ESPN, Big Ten Network, what they said is you're going to hear from Allen Robinson. You're going to hear from Bill O'Brien. You're going to hear from Christian Hackenberg. All the key players who are going to comment on that Michigan game, and et cetera. So, not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing at all. Yeah, it's great.
Brings a smile to my face.
I think it's great that they do this. Plus, they're going to start the camp tours. And I want to say that Dave Revson, Jerry DiNardo, Howard Griffith, I believe they're here Sunday. I think that's the day they're here. Saturday or Sunday. They're here one of the 2 days this weekend. And they do a great job with that. To me, it is something where, with all due respect, you can do it within the confines of a conference. You got 14 schools, so you can take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something, for example, ESPN spends a lot of money on a lot of different things. Most of it, not most of it. Some of it's a waste of time. That's something they should do with their college football coverage. They should do some camp tours.
Sure.
And do that, because I think Dave, Jerry, and Howard get a lot out of it. I think the fan gets a lot out of it. Jerry's really, I mean, I've been able to really talk to Jerry over the years about a couple of observations he's had that, to be honest with you, have absolutely played out as the season's gone along, and he really has a great eye for it.
He does. He talk about a well-rounded, incredible background down at LSU for a while. He's been around.
Sure, he was assistant coach at Notre Dame, head coach at Indiana.
Not bad. Good credentials.
And not only that, very, very, just a really great guy. I always love when people, if they don't like your analysis, they don't like you.
Yeah. Geez, that's silly.
His job is not to be your buddy. His job is to honestly look at something. It doesn't mean you're right about everything. Okay? Just because you say it and it's your observation, it doesn't mean you're right about it in the end. All right? But most of the stuff he says is correct, and he gives good, honest evaluations. All right. Today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews. Best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. And the pickle bar. Some people like garlic, but others prefer the barrels and the dills. Indeed, second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Nate Bauer, next half hour.
Outlet, the beverage superstock superstores, ready for all of your warm weather activities. Camping, picnics, grilling. Visit Brewers Outlet first for microbrews, imports, domestic specialties. They got them. Grab some pickles at the Pickle Bar, Steve Jones's favorite place. Snacks, Brewers Outlet has that covered. Soda, sports drinks, check. Weekly specials too. And there's lots of convenient parking. So get all the refreshments everyone will love for your next outdoor gathering at Brewers Outlet, the beverage superstock superstore. Reagan Street, Sunbury.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestic microbrews, best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. The pickle bar, led by the barrels and the dills. Indeed, second to none. Stock up for another great summer weekend now at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. We're in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. And now we bring in Nate Bauer from Blue White Illustrated. Nate, welcome. It's great to have you with us. And in your limited viewing opportunity and also a chance to talk and listen to James Franklin and a couple of others after practice on Wednesday night, what are some of the general impressions you have so far?
So, you know this as well as anybody. I mean, it's the age-old question of, you're watching ones versus ones or two versus two.
Yep.
To me, the defense was outstanding. The offense had some struggles, even though there were a couple of flashes in that session. And, kind of the ear to the ground feedback is the same, right? That as you would expect, as everyone should that, knows anything about Penn State football coming into the season should expect, the defense being ahead of the offense probably isn't a surprise. And it's just a question of gauging, is the defense elite? Is the defense great? Is the defense good? And then based on whatever tier the defense is, then what does that mean for the offense?
And also what the defense was working on maybe for the first time that they hadn't worked on before.
Yep, no doubt. And so when you see, now I'm making a guess here, but typically at the beginning of preseason practice, Penn State's defense is not going to show a lot of blitzes, right? They're not going to do a lot They're not going to do crazy stuff. The linebackers aren't going to blitz. You're certainly not going to get blitzes out of the secondary because, that's not the point. You're not trying to overwhelm the offense. That said, when Yetur Gross-Matos, basically plows through the line with ease, is that because he's an All-American defensive end, or are there maybe some troubles up front for the offensive line? It's impossible to tell right now, and frankly, even as these next couple of weeks go along, I don't think we're going to know really until Penn State gets into the Big Ten schedule.
All right. Did anybody give you any insight as to how the quarterbacks have been?
So that's the mystery right now is trying to get a gauge on that. I mean, certainly that's something that I'm trying to track down. We've seen whether it was Saturday at media day or even Wednesday, some brief glimpses. Frankly, I thought Clifford had a great ball on Saturday that he threw to KJ Hamler. There was a big gainer there. But outside of that, it's thrown on air is not gonna tell you what you really need to see. The question for me is and will continue to be, is that elusiveness there for either one of these guys? Now we saw Michael Johnson take off. He had a really nice run. But that's third and fourth string carries, right? That's just a different standard.
Sure.
So the question is can a lot of Trace McSorley's success, was based on being able to get away from trouble and get away from oncoming traffic, basically. Can Sean Clifford do that? If the offensive line is what it is, and even if it makes modest improvements or good improvements, in this game at this level, you still got to get away from pressure. And that's the one thing that, certainly I'll be waiting to see.
Give me a couple of names you mentioned Yetur Gross-Matos. Give me a couple of names that you think will be subtly pivotal. It's obvious that Micah Parsons is going to be pivotal, but somebody else that's a little bit further off the radar to you that can be pivotal to take what could be a really, really good defense into potentially making it a great defense.
That is a great question.
About time I asked one.
Yeah, no, I can always count on you for the tough ones. I'm always intrigued by defensive tackle. I really am. I just think that the position itself provides so much for everybody else. And so, coming off of Kevin Givens, who was maybe a little bit more disruptive than people gave him credit for, I'm watching Antonio Shelton. I'm watching PJ Mustipher. I'm watching Rob Windsor. Is Rob Windsor as the guy there? Is that, what will he open up for other players? So certainly I'll be checking there. And then, I don't think that there's much mystery to the idea that Lamont Wade is a guy who had sky-high expectations, certainly for himself and from the outside for him, coming into his career at Penn State. All right, it's year 3, and he certainly appears to be in line to take that starting job opposite Garrett Taylor. Is he gonna do it? Is he gonna be a steady force there and a steady presence? Because if he can play, if he can make some tackles, get some interceptions, be ball hawking, then yeah, I do think that there's an opportunity for Penn State's defense to take that next step beyond just the usual suspects, like you said.
All right, so now let's flip that over to the offense. The quarterbacks are the obvious one, so we'll put that aside, just like we put Micah Parsons and Yetur Gross-Matos aside in the defense. So in the offense, who could, if someone makes even a subtle improvement, it can turn an offense into something people don't want to play against?
Yeah, that's another one. The guy that jumped out to me on Saturday and again on Wednesday, that I just, for whatever reason, we just haven't talked about him, is Mac Hippenhammer.
Yep.
Honestly. I really think that if he is doing what I think he's doing, which is making a push and making a move, he's a guy who, in addition to KJ Hamler, in addition to Jahan Dotson, could really make an impact there at wide receiver. Obviously, to me, Justin Shorter is a guy who will remain intriguing. And the story last year, you know it as well as I do, is it's about consistency. James Franklin sounds like a broken record sometimes when he talks about it, but a lot of these guys, especially at this level, can make the spectacular play. They can do it. It's just a matter of, are you going to consistently catch the ball? And last year, whether it was Trace being a little bit off or whether it was these guys, kind of starting to get into their own heads, for one reason or another, the quarterback and the receiver position just never connected last year. And so a guy like Justin Shorter, who you would expect to be a possession receiver, is he going to do that? Is he going to make those improve this year? And then also, I'm waxing on and on here, but I'm also looking for Journey Brown. I really do think that there's a buzz about him going through the spring into the summer. Understanding that he was away from the team for the summer, it really didn't stop. Certainly, it didn't stop Franklin from naming him as a breakout candidate at Big Ten Media Days. People were talking about him at preseason media day. People were talking about him on Wednesday. So, there's another guy who, certainly I think that the running backs in general offer a lot of intrigue as to who might, kind of step forward in that group.
The hardest one to maybe get a read on would be the special teams part. And Penn State really, really emphasizes special teams.
Yeah.
What kind of impact, and this maybe is based on a couple of people you've talked to, maybe post-practice interviews and so forth, that Joe Lorig has had leading that group? Because obviously a lot of coaches are involved with him in that group.
Yeah, it's look, and this is interesting because I think Parker, has a little bit of the same impact, but the way that they carry themselves, right? It's almost like the mental side of things. It's just so easy to overlook the reality that these are people. These are just dudes. They're kids. They're kids, and
yeah, that's something I never forget. I never forget that I'm looking at 18 to 22-year-olds. I never do forget that when I'm broadcasting a game.
Steve, I get nervous standing over putts, playing by myself. It's just human nature ultimately wins out, and so. I think that the impact, this is a long way around to get to this point, but the way that Lorig carries himself, the way that Parker carries himself, the way that they kind of instill confidence and try to instill confidence in these guys. Certainly the feedback through the spring and the summer was very positive for both of those guys. And so, my immediate thought, though, when I'm looking at special teams is Stout does to that group.
Yeah, right.
Right? It was just different. Even on Wednesday, they finished with kickoff.
Right.
And Cheka had one. I'm trying to remember if Pinniger had the other one.
He did.
Yeah. And then Stout. And Stout, it just sounds different. It looks different when you got a kid who just booms it out of the back of the end zone. For Penn State, and we always like to cherry pick, individual plays that make or break a game. But the reality for Penn State is 6 kickoffs out of bounds last year was extremely detrimental to this program's success. Just to have a kid who's going to put it into the back of the end zone, what was it last year? 88%? I think that's the number.
Yep.
That's game changing. I will never forget. Urban Meyer coming into Beaver Stadium, and I think it was when Bill O'Brien was here, frankly.
Yeah.
Having a kickoff specialist who can do with the ball whatever he wants,
You put the ball. You kept putting the ball at the 1.5.
The 1.5.
Where you had to take it back, and if you got back to the 17-yard line, you're +8.
It was unbelievable, and it was such a little, like, if you weren't paying attention, you didn't you know, when you're starting with the ball on your own 18-yard line as opposed to the 25, it makes a colossal difference. So I'll be very interested to see what the actual dividends are on special teams this year. But certainly, I think after last year, they can only go up.
What has the college football playoff, in your opinion, done?
Oh boy. I think that it has. I mean, look. I think that there's the haves and the have-nots, and you know, I run the.
Some wild bumper music there as we approach the top of the hour on the Steve Jones Show, brought to you this Friday by Brewers Outlet. And all I want to say is it's home with the garlic pickles. You don't have to say much more than that, Matt.
Yeah, always a good time at Brewers Outlet.
I call it Candyland, but that's just me.
I've heard similar names.
That's just me. Tonight we've got the Phillies on WKOK AM. Starting, I think, game time, 10:15 out in the Bay.
Yep, 9:40 is our coverage time on WKOK. Drew Smiley against Brian Steed. So,
okay.
We'll see if the Phillies can bounce back. One hit last night. We keep saying the Phillies have hit rock bottom at many different times throughout the season, but maybe last night was it. I have no idea.
Well, they were
one hit by Madison Bumgarner, who, again, is a great pitcher, but as we mentioned yesterday on the show, Bob, that he was giving up, averaging 12 runs given up each the last 3 games or so.
Yeah, it's Madison really brought his A game last night. We all know what a great pitcher he can be, and he proved it again last night.
That was the thank you for not trading me moment.
Yes. What talk and speculation about that, and nothing happened, Steve.
Well, it's always been the mantra of our digital media group. Sometimes when we're doing nothing, we're doing something.
True.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Management doesn't go by that. No.
And, by the way, tonight, Steve, on the Valley, we've got the Steelers' first preseason from Heinz Field. Tunch and the boys will be coming on at 5:30 with kickoff scheduled about 7:30.
Yeah. That's coming up tonight. It's, let's see. I think Roethlisberger will run through the tunnel. After that, I don't think anything else is going to happen.
And I think he'll smile and wave to the crowd, not anticipating.
Yeah, maybe a series, maybe.
Actually, it was reported yesterday Josh Dobbs is going to start tonight.
That's terrific. Oh, that's terrific. That really helps sell tickets, don't you think?
Oh, they're going to pack them in all around Heinz Field on that one.
Honestly, though, I know it's not the best storyline in the world, but this is a big preseason for both Dobbs and for Mason Rudolph, especially for Mason Rudolph, a guy that the Steelers traded up for in the 3rd round. If he can't win the starting job or the backup job and take that away from Josh Dobbs, then the Steelers obviously maybe made a mistake taking him up there in the 3rd round 2 years ago.
Steven, personally, I'm looking forward to something on the offensive line for the Steelers tonight. At right tackle, Matt Filer from Bloomsburg University and Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, played his high school ball there. Matt has been a journeyman, and now he's on the starting offensive line at right tackle for the Steelers. Fabulous kid. Joining the ranks of about 5 Bloomsburg University linemen who have made it to the NFL.
Well, the key is you have to show versatility. If you're going to play, if you're going to be a journeyman in the NFL, you have to play multiple positions.
And he has. He's been everywhere on the line, and this is his big night.
That way you can then show value because they really don't want to carry in a game more than 7 linemen in a game.
Well, he's earned his way to the top 5, and we'll see him tonight. That's really great. And we're on the Valley with the Steelers, 5:30, and then 7:30 kickoff.
And it's today's show brought to you by Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. We're in the Sunbury Motors studio. Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Key 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
WKOK Sunbury. You can hear us anywhere in the world with the Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation app.